Punching. We are live.
Oh, we're live. Bang, bang. Yo, yo.
Welcome,
Who's out
everyone.
there?
Whoever it is.
Everybody's out there.
That's right.
All those in the visible and invisible spectrum. Welcome. We see you. We feel you. We feel your good vibrations, your good frequencies. We honor all those that are already above the sun in the realms and dimensions of love, big love, pouring down that love frequency down here below the sun. We certainly need it. Big loves in us. We're doing what we need to do down here below the sun. And we so appreciate the partnership of that constructive interference. As above, so below. And yeah, the earth and the fullness thereof, and all of Big Love's creation, it's all changing.
For the better.
Bad guys are on their heels, not having to go at anybody corrupt, malevolent. You all need to get off the planet. Go do your life review. You're out. We're staying.
Come on.
Right?
Right.
Juggernauts, powerful and unstoppable. Lion-hearted, fearless. So good, man. That was good. Juggernauts, powerful and unstoppable. That's what we are, bro. Was listening to Chris Blackaby. Kind of, he's got a nice YouTube channel out there, so I want to honor Chris and the atmosphere that he's creating out there.
Yeah.
Broman's above the sun. Not hard to tell. How do you know, bro? How do you tell when somebody's above the sun? Like, just what does that mean to you, bro?
The language is different, right? Nuances in how they speak and how they perform, they act, what their subject, what they talk about, how they talk about what's going on there. I mean, if the words are filled with father language, they're filled with hope, filled with almost a, I guess you could say almost a foolishness to the world's concepts, right? It's not just questioning everything. There's plenty of people out there questioning everything, but it's more of it's questioning perspective. Like the things that bother people don't bother the sons the same way, right? Like there's a different value system at play, and that value system manifests in how they speak and the terminology they use. Um, it's it definitely it's one of those nuances, right? It's like almost an art of talking. Like living above the sun is an art form. So you can there's characteristics, but it's not even just the words they say, but it's like the spirit that they encase those words in, right? That comes out of them. And you're like the same, you got two different people saying the same exact words, and yet there's an essence to the one above the sun that distinguishes those words because it carries a carries life and energy differently than someone that just speaks with an informative language from, their knowledge, their headspace below the sun. And you can feel it. And it only comes from someone that's been with the one, right? I mean, like children, they your father's son, your daughter's mother, or your mother's daughter, because someone looks and say, "Man, you remind me of your mom. You remind me of your dad,"
Mm.
right? And you're like, well, I didn't do anything different. I'm just being me. But there's
Mm,
something in your demeanor, in your expressions, the way you do things and say things that it's like they're coming from behind, and they see your parents in your body language and in your words. And that only comes from hanging out with someone long enough to rub off on you, right?
right.
And so I think that's why First John 1:1 sticks out to me so much is the guy we sat with, we ate with, we hung out with for many, many years. This is the guy we're telling you about and want to have fellowship. And they know that you've been walking with them because of you look like him, you smell like him, you act like him, you talk like him. That's the essence of life that is flowing from your works. That someone who hasn't, but has maybe read a biography, and even just reading the Bible, like is a biography. Just reading it
Mm,
doesn't mean that you know
right,
them.
right, right,
It doesn't mean you're gonna be carrying that same essence. I mean,
right.
it's a highly chance you're gonna face him somehow. If you're reading the word and you're being honest with yourself, you're gonna have that relationship eventually. But just being head knowledge, I know the atheists know the Bible back and forth,
Mm.
but they have no authority in their words. They don't carry the life essence because they don't know him. They haven't been with him. And that's the difference. That's how you can tell someone is actually living above the sun.
Yeah, totally, man. And obviously, we've been journeying together for I don't know, a few years now, and just listening to various voices, across the globe, across the planet. And yeah, it's interesting seeing even the diversity within the tapestry of us using the same language and how, I guess, below the sun culturally maybe we're different dynamics that are happening below the sun. It seems like we're all on a journey together. We're in this book of our own unique life experiences, and we might be on different pages, but we're in the same book. So when you talk about value, like you talk about value system and what we're doing in relationship as sons. Chris Blackaby talked about it, that the pagans back in the day made up the Christian name to identify those Christians, he called it.
Right.
And
Those
I thought
guys over
that was
there.
interesting. So whether they had a mocking tone behind it, and Chris says, well, obviously, if you need to mark me that way so you can distinguish because there's something that's happening in our language that we have some type of relationship with something, some type of Elohim, it's evident, but we're not Christians. And Chris said, we're sons. We're sons of God. Boston C likes big love. We're sons of big love.
Yeah. I mean, even uh, it's interesting that the title that the Christians gave themselves was lost,
Mm,
and that the Christian title stuck. They were called people of the way. That was what they called themselves, people of the way. But that got overridden by a substandard title, little Christs. I mean, that's not terrible, little Christs, but it was kind of a negative terminology being used to label. I mean, we humans love to label stuff, right? To categorize, to some degree, to minimize some things, to mitigate their influence, so we can they're just a Christian. You just put them over there on the side. They're crazy. Just leave them alone. You'll be fine. I mean that it's I think just a human nature response to things when we don't understand something and it makes us uncomfortable. And I'm pretty sure they made people a lot uh, really uncomfortable. These people that come around and turn the world upside down, that sounds like people that are sticking their finger in things and just by nature walking in and upsetting the balance because well listen, I mean you walk in and you've got an essence and a spirit that is chunked up and just overpowers any other spirit, you're going to upset the balance and the spiritual dynamics of a region, right? You're going to come in, just be yourself, and it's going to turn the tables on the spiritual marketplaces and things going on in those realms, and that's going to filter down into the physical, and people are going to walk around with grumpy attitudes. Anybody who's been, upset because their spiritual environment has been shaken dramatically. You know, it happened when those guys walked into town. I don't know why, but they've just made everything bad for me. So when you walk in that kind of influence, just being in an area, you start to upset the atmosphere, um, to the degree that people are saying these guys are, what were they saying? They caused awe and fear among the people group that they would enter into, because not that they just upset things, but dramatic change to the atmosphere. And at least I get the sense of that they weren't anybody that you wanted to mess with. You know, they rolled into town. It's kind of the opposite of that coin would be like a biker gang, right? They roll in town on their motorcycles, the Harleys, and their presence, and people, they avoid them, you know, in the sense of like, don't mess with these guys because they have no qualms to off you if they need to, right? Beat you up, mess you up. So we steer clear of them. And that's a kind of a negative sense, but that same presence, that same power of walking in is the sense I get for when Paul rolled into Ephesus and began to perform and just be, who he's supposed to be. And people were upset by what he and his community did, but also were kind of walked around on eggshells around them because they knew the power they carried and you know didn't know what was going to happen to them if they messed around with them.
So
So
I have a question regarding that. So at the time, were they walking, let's say it's after the in the upper room when Ruach descended, were the majority of believers walking in the demonstration of the power that you talked about, of course, being transformed from the inside out? So the heart, the knowledge of eternal life, blah, blah, blah. But I'm talking about demonstrative healings, mirror,
right.
all. Do you feel that that was happening at a corporate level as a community of people? And
Yeah,
if that might be true, did that actually have an impact in the unraveling of the Roman Empire too?
I
That it
think
be,
so. I mean, that there was definitely the sense of a demonstration of the power at hand, that wherever Paul would go, he walked in that, and that was an outflow of what was experienced in Jerusalem. I think you see snippets, right? Peter and John going to the temple, you know, healing the lame man, healing the blind man. Um,
but most would say that's due to the apostolic authority, which obviously we have, right? So
right.
I'm just curious if those that were following the apostles, the resurrection, graves opening up, 500 people going in town, hanging out for 30 days or whatever the scriptures, speak to about that. To me, that's pretty
Yeah, it
phenomenal.
doesn't. There's some stories like okay, Philip, right? Philip was one of the deacons, so like we get the idea that the apostles are just overburdened by the ministry, like the works and things like that, taking care of the widows, doing all the menial tasks, quote unquote, as well as doing the teaching, as well as doing the signs and wonders, the evangelism. So they're overwhelmed and they have to set up this whole deacon board, group of men filled with the Spirit, right? And you get the sense Stephen, Philip, just the two that stand off that we have actual stories in scripture about, who operate at a capacity and a level where the demonstration of signs and wonders are happening. Philip, who's translated from one location to another, right?
Right.
Um, the glory shining off of Stephen's face as he's preaching. So you get the sense of there is the same spirit that was upon apostles. Well, we know it falls upon more than just the apostles in the
Mm-hmm.
upper room.
Mm-hmm.
So that demonstrative expression of signs and wonders, healings, casting out devils, I think it was very much present. I would love to have seen more written by the apostles as to what the others were doing, right? What the other deacons were experiencing um, in scripture. But I think it's very safe to say that that was probably was 100% happening.
Yeah.
And part of it, I think, was, I don't know. You obviously asked the question, why did it stop? Right? Why isn't it the same way today? What's the difference? And I know that I've heard people say, well, it was necessary to get it off the ground. And then once we got our momentum going, the signs and wonders weren't as necessary. You get that whole denomination groups now that say that
Mm.
those are no longer necessary. Now we have the written word, and that's enough. And we know that's not true.
Right.
But um, certainly have to ask the question, what changed? And of course, many people have gone and redug those wells. And we have this ebb and flow of signs and wonders happening. And I think part of it has been, a mystery to to me, and I think to a lot of people, why do we get this thing to get this engine running? I mean, what does it take to make these things a commonplace commonality in my day, my life, in everyday community of the church? Why does it come and go sometimes? And I think it remains a mystery because I think it's tied into relationship. And so you're not going to get a pet answer or a protocol to make these turn on or off. It's going to be done through relationship and their process of maturing in the likeness of Christ, maturing as a son and stepping into those things and having the journey and growing the authority to have a voice. Because I think what's more important isn't the signs and wonders, as it's what are you preaching? What are you preaching, not just with your mouth, but your actions? And a lot of people want the signs and wonders, but they don't have the authority and the character to carry the voice, carry the message. And if Father were to allow, and he does sometimes, but in general, would allow that the signs and wonders to happen without the maturity and the authority, those can be stumbling blocks. And we've had circumstances where men have strayed off the path, you might say, because they have allowed the signs and wonders to become the end. And they bend everything towards making sure that they've got the power and the signs, but their character is lacking, their maturity is lacking, their relationship with their father is lacking, and it causes problems, right? Cause falling out. So we've got plenty of history of men who have had signs and wonder ministries, and then they've had a falling out, and they've gone down some roads, created some new theologies, and it's caused major problems in the church, and it's caused many people to push off and say, "This guy, I don't want anything to do with this." So I don't know. Signs and wonders is like the redheaded stepchild in a family sometimes, and people just don't know what to do with them. They're part of the family, they're part of who we are, part of what we're supposed to do, but we just don't get it sometimes. And there's always this awkwardness that comes along. We think we figured it out, and then something throws us a wrench, and then now causing more problems. I don't know. And I'm talking from like 20, 30 years of wrestling with this concept, growing up a denomination that was born out of it, signs and wonders, and then the assembly of God, right? Speaking in tongues, healings, and things like that. Them going through ebbs and flows over the decades in the past century, uh, making it preeminent, and then going back to just strictly biblical, and then trying to redig those wells, and it's certainly signs and wonders make things chaotic, and it makes for great drama in the church, you know. So
Well, there to me, there's a difference between chaos and disruption,
right, totally.
right? So, no, so I mean, I'm hearing everything you're saying. I just, I'm imagining, resurrection. Mhm. You're seeing, because you nailed it, bro. I mean, we're obviously this is the tone and the breadth of ATS is recognizing everything is about character. That's your
Yeah.
identity. That's your name. It's your character. The breath that comes out of the words, the language reveals over time the nature of your character. It can be seen below the sun and it's always observed, above the sun. And so one of the things that I think that trips us up or has maybe, and this is just maybe a broad stroke. I mean, not even it being detailed in history and what took place with the unraveling of, the Roman Empire and all that, and the Nicene, 300 AD, Constantine. So I think it was the adversary, it put some triggers and trips and this and that. But the biggest thing I think that disrupts one's character is compromise.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And when you begin, because in the days ahead, what's beginning, what intuitively what I'm saying is there's going to be a big thing with artificial intelligence. It's happening. It's coming. The Lord is going to leverage it, use it. And so you have this artificial thing going on, intelligence. Well, okay, how about authentic intelligence? So I'm trying to rewire my brain that you can choose this world of artificial intelligence to go into this imagery and imagination world that's actually a real world. And that's what really nobody's talking about at a quantum level, because we're living on multiple timelines and our choices, good or bad, are going to create outcomes, and we can always turn around and get on a higher timeline. I just want to live above the sun on the timeline of big love. How about that?
Sounds good to
So
me.
yeah. So compromise, you use words like maturity, it's a big deal. You can see someone's maturity or lack of maturity, and that's okay. There's spiritual arrogance, even with brothers and sisters, sons above the sun. It's all good. It's all good, you know. Um, and so that just makes us want to work harder at being a good. We're already good sons, but we need to, what we want. We want to just look like dad. Well, the only way you're going to look and smell like dad is you got to hang out with dad.
Right.
You want to learn how to be a carpenter, hang out with Joseph, and then you'll be a pretty good carpenter. So if you want to learn how to be a pretty good son, you know, and as Nancy Cohen said at this last conference, it was awesome. When you go above the sun, you can go up and down if you want, ascend and descend. We are Jacob's ladder. But why don't we go up and stay up?
Mhm.
Yeah. So wait a minute. And that's where we're supposed to be seated. Well, we are seated. Our spirit's there. It's just the soul trying to figure out, whoa, what do I do? Well, just ascend and stay there. So wait a minute, your spirit, and you can determine and will and choose to have your soul live in an ascended state 24/7, 365. Yep. That's where it gets exciting. when you live there and stay there.
Right.
And then what are some of the things that we can do here below the sun? You know, that we can take our authority as a son. Papa, you see what's happening over there? Yep. What are you going to do about it? Oh, I'm going to get in your right hand and just love on you and do some stuff because I know you're doing stuff. So this is good because I'm feeling what you're feeling. This is good, Papa. I'm going to stay here for a while. Stay as long as you want, son. Okay. And you don't have to worry about what's happening.
Right.
Trying to make things
I think
happen. Right?
I
Stop
think
trying to
there's
make outcomes. Papa's making the outcomes. Just
right. Right.
cooperate with big love. Well, I only do what I see what the father doing. Okay, he's always doing something. So if you're
Yeah.
waiting for the train, the next train, wait a minute, here it comes again. Here's another train. It's called living in the now. Justin Abraham talks about now. This moment is beautiful. You're beautiful, right? Living in the now,
Right.
right? In every moment, right? Thought by thought is really everyday eternal living. You just stay in that state of being and just determine that. I'm not saying that we don't get triggered because that's the other thing is, we got to we take out our trash, but we're willing to take out our trash. There are those that don't even recognize, I don't have, what? Geez, you don't even, you got to take out your trash bin. It's stinky, 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 you know? And then you just strive to thrive in your lane.
This
You know,
is I think
so good.
what I'm discovering is that to live in the now, to live in the ascended state
Yeah.
is to not neglect living in the earth at the same time.
Yes.
So I think the maturity issue that we see here is for the longest time, the church has lived in the earth and not ascended, right? Forgotten the ancient ways. So they've rediscovered it. In immaturity, people go into the ascension as an escape. Well, they taste something and they taste to see it's good and they enjoy it and they want to continue it 24/7. In their brokenness and immaturity, they're going up, they're being called, they've taken on the invitation, they've climbed up the mountain, and they're like, oh, this is good. I just want to spend the rest of my time here. We're not designed to just stay there and there alone. We are bridges. We are there and here at the same time. So you go and you get healed and cleaned, but you're not supposed to just hide out there. You're supposed to be in the earth as well. The body was made for creation. So we're intended to be on both sides. If you kind of imagine the spiritual plane and the physical plane, and that there's a bridge that connects the two, we are the bridge, right? So mature son knows how to walk with his head in the cloud and his feet on the earth at the same time. I think when you can get that balance, and there's a balance to it. There's almost a point of tension because you're engaging in a world that's corrupt at the same time as you're living from a place of incorruption.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your foot in there and you're not tainted by it, but yet your feet
Mm-hmm.
are here
Mm-hmm.
planted and so
Mm-hmm.
that you can engage with it and bring transformation. I
Mm-hmm.
think when you're living in the ascended state as a mature son, you're not triggered while you're walking on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
You learn because something triggers you, you're already engaged. You know exactly how to feed that up and get the right response,
Mm.
right? Because it's flowing. So you're constantly moving. This is what I think the terminology from quantum mechanics is superimposed.
Yes.
You're at both places.
Quantum superposition.
Yes,
Spot
superposition.
on.
Yep. So you're living in both places. So
Correct.
you can instantly turn in and it's not even turning on because you're already there.
Hey.
And so you're having this conversation, yet you know everything's going on here and
Right.
it's happening at the same time,
Right.
right?
Right.
It actually is exhausting when you first begin to break into that
Right.
because the tension that's there. I know there's a tendency, and I've had it, to want to just get drunk and stay in this sin, especially when it smells of high heaven down here, right? So you're like, I just want to stay drunk in this position, but you realize I'm made for both, and so I got to deal with the stench and not get offended by it.
Right.
The stench doesn't, you like people that work in the dump, their clothes, they smell like the dump when they leave,
Right.
right? Well, if you're living in this true connection where you're heaven and earth,
Right.
bridge connection, you can walk among the stench and yet you don't smell like it.
Right.
And I think that's I think what we're all working at, honestly. As we go up and we've tasted and we've seen, we want to sit the footstool of our Father and engage with him on a regular basis and not concern ourselves with the things of the earth. And I think there's a season for that where Father's like, you've worried and concerned yourself too much. Just forget it. Just come sit with me. But at some point in that maturity development, Father's like, okay, I've cleaned you, I've healed you, I've prepared you to go be salt in the earth. I've designed you. This is your original intent. This is woven in your fabric. This is the blueprint of Christ. Go be salt, but stay connected, right? Don't forget your first love. Don't forget that this is going on. Leverage this to be successful there. And that I think is the model of Christ, what he did, where he could walk among, you know, the the various corrupted types out in the earth, sick, poor, prideful, greedy, the rich, you know, and yet he had the ability to communicate and engage with all of them, not be tainted by them, because he was constantly connected to the Father and knew what to say, knew what to do, because he managed that bridge perfectly. He lived in both worlds at the same time, and they weren't duplicitous. He wasn't like, see, this is something I was thinking about, Father's been speaking to me about with kids, being a kid. Like when your parent gives you your first task, you're like, I got a 5-year-old right now, and he just wants to help. So you give him a job, and he's like really excited. He's so excited that he charges out to do the job and doesn't stay around for the instructions. You know?
Right.
So he goes out and does it and comes back frustrated because he didn't know where he was supposed to go or what he was supposed to do. He just knew he was supposed to do something. And so, you know, learning to just stay put for a minute, get the instructions, right? And I think sometimes Father gives us a ministry and a mission and a goal, in our maturity process, and we run out and go headlong into it. And we're like stumbling ourselves, messing it up. It's not working. This job you gave me isn't the best fit, or why did you do this? Or we come back with all these excuses of why it didn't work out. And the reality is we just ran off in our immaturity to try and figure this out. And I think a lot of ministries, because they don't manage the bridge, they don't manage living in the ascended life at the same time as walking as salt among the earth. At the same time, they're having this go back forth. I had to go to heaven to get some instructions, and then I came down to heaven, out of heaven, and started doing it, and it wasn't working. So I frustrated myself over time, and so now I got to go back to heaven and figure out what's going on. This duplicity doesn't work. It's a sign of immaturity, because Christ never had any
Right.
issues
Right.
with walking in the earth and
Right.
doing what he was supposed to do perfectly, because he was
Right.
constantly living in both places, both realms at the same time, apprehending the source of life for instruction, for what Paul says, everything for life and godlikeness. It's there, but we got to live in his constant stream, not just on a one a day, not even just like I get up in the morning and pray and talk to my Father, and then I go about my day and do it my own strength, right? And then at the end of the day, I'm like, well, I tried this, it didn't work out. It's like, well, next time, let's go out and do it together. And that's really fresh for me right now, especially with school students. Is Father's like, you did what I told you to do. You go out and start this, but you did it without really doing it with me in certain regards. And you just did it in your own strength in these ways. And so I'm relearning how to take the steps, live in that ascended life in the day in, day out questions and activities of
Yep.
my tasks in front of me, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And
Q,
it
the
looks
Q,
differently
the
for
Q, the Q, the
right.
Q,
That's right.
QRST, right? Above the sun, the quantum.
That's
And
right.
you and everything, and you keep using the word over and over, and I'm like, that's Gimel, 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 right? Bridging where they need to go. So this is, if I've assimilated the journey of supply, nourished and weaned until what? Full ripe of maturity, sustained and sufficiently watered, able to help carry where they need to go, right? Bridging where they need to go. That's who we are. We're the Gimel.
Yeah.
Yeshua is the Gimel.
Yeah.
He is the supply. That is the supply that we tap into. That's in us. We're in the Gimel. We're on the journey of supply. Okay. We're being nourished, but we're being weaned at the same time. Like you say, hey, let's do this together. So it's all happening at the same time. But what's the objective? Get you where you're sustained, sufficiently watered, so you can do you and
Yeah.
what's unique to you, so you can help carry whatever comes to your mind, whatever's in your heart, whatever you want to carry in your heart over and over again.
Right.
Start
Totally.
with the earth, start with the galaxy, start with creation, start with the multiverse, start wherever you want. Just get in, start carrying stuff and be the bridge.
Yeah.
And it all happens living in that state in relationship.
Yeah. Yep.
Beautiful.
It
So
is.
good. And it's and the opportunity to sharpen what some would say is your own character. It's almost like chipping the wood away, getting the humanity, chipping away this sculpture. Less of me, more of you. And I say it over and over. When does Jeff stop and big love begin?
Right. Right.
It, it, right? It's kind of like it's all one deal, man. So I just wish I could hear from God. Okay, everybody, hold on. God's been talking for 40 minutes through two jabrones, thing one and thing two, right? I mean, really,
That's right. Yeah.
straight up. Wait a minute. Yeah, we're Elohim, man. You need to bone up on your Elohim. Find a better. How about Big Love? He's the biggest Elohim there is. Ah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. This is so good, man.
It
Now this
is.
is meaty. I missed the others, but man, this is good, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about, we were talking about going back to the signs and wonders stuff
Yeah.
in the context of this bridge. Often I wonder whether, Yeshua is even concerned about signs and wonders. Uh, like it wasn't his shtick. Like he didn't really, it was like the stuff that just kind of came off of what he was doing. Like his real mean focus was, I have a message to preach. And I actually my main purpose here, guys, is simply to get up on that cross and then resurrect because I got to get some things done. And on the way there, I'm gonna kick some butt. But and I might throw
I love the chicken butt pot.
throw some signs and wonders out there on the way. But my main is just to come and show you my Father. My main, that's it.
Yeah.
And these are the ways my Father demonstrates Himself. I think and it's just really cool to do signs and wonders, right? I mean, break bread until you can feed thousands of people off of, five loaves. That's pretty crazy cool. Who doesn't want to do that? We get caught up in the signs and wonders as that's, I want to be a ministry of signs and wonders. I want people where our emotions drive us to fix things through signs and wonders. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's symptomatic. It deals with symptoms. Signs and wonders deal with symptoms. They don't deal with the heart of the issue, right? And I think Christ walked as a holistic naturopath. You know, he
Yeah.
was after the whole person.
Yeah.
And because of that, his process was different than even the Pharisees. If you'll go do these things, you'll be in right standing for God. You'll get healed because you did A, B, and C. Very orthodox methodologies that were law oriented to
Right.
solve an issue, symptomatic answers or answers to the symptoms of your issue, but never dealing with the heart, which is really kind of crazy because the Father always talked in the OT to Israel about the heart issue. They just could never get the heart issue. So there was always these issues with dealing these laws that are set to deal with the symptoms. Never, but he was always reminding them, but I really want your hearts. If you'll deal with the hearts, we wouldn't have need for these laws, right? And so Christ comes and deals with the heart as a holistic creature. And so it confounded the wise because he would do signs and wonders for people that didn't deserve to be healed. These sinners are getting healed, but, and matter of fact, you knew Christ says, I've healed you, but you got to make sure you go, deal with your heart because if you don't, this is going to come back. Right. So he addressed in that circumstance a symptom, but but then spoke to the heart because he was all about the heart. And I think his focus was holistic. He was after the wholeness of the person, the shalom. And that's really what shalom is, right? Bringing in wholeness, spirit, soul, and body, not just feeding your physical hunger, not healing your physical issues and ailments, but or even changing your economic status. Those are symptoms of the heart, and that was what he was after. I think he's and as a prototype, we say then, well, what are the sons of God supposed to be about then? If this was the first son of God, and he prototypes every other son following, then we have to look to him to say, we need to be holistic in our own processes, which I think is why ATS is so focused on relationship, because it's about the heart matter more than getting you healed, more than making you prosperous, right? More than solving the symptoms. I mean, that's if we look at it in the world today and look at society, we have these dueling medical uh, philosophies. Your common traditional modern medicine is all about dealing with the symptoms. And right now, there's a word for it, and I forget what it's called, but basically, it's the intention of treating the symptoms of the circumstance, but never dealing with it. And then on the other side of the philosophy coin is we're going to be holistic about it. If we'll deal with the core, the root issue, those symptoms will disappear because we're dealing with getting the body healthy. We're dealing about realigning it to its original intent and process. And basically, that's what Shalom is saying. Don't worry about the sin. Get your body healthy. Sin won't be an issue.
Right.
Don't worry about the demonic.
Right.
Deal with getting yourself full of
Right.
the water,
Right.
full of the love.
Right.
Get your body, soul into Shalom.
Right.
And the pests, the spiritual pests of your life
Right.
they'll
Right.
stop coming around.
Right.
And I think that's what Christ was being. He was holistic in his heart and dealing with the heart, getting healthy, getting clean, right? Then that stuff, you won't need to worry about rules and laws and boundaries to protect you from the stuff because it won't come near your house
Right.
because you're healthy.
No, that's awesome, man. And it's everything that you're describing to me is the secret. It's the mystery of, again, coming back to the very character and nature of what is existing in the temple in your body. And it's and then and so
Right.
the issues of the heart, when you tap into that mystery, you also get to tap into, and I like Justin talked about, he used the term, I like it, spiritual intelligence. And I like that because I was using authentic intelligence. So I'm combining authentic. This is when you have this refined, mature character, you're accessing the secrets and mysteries of big love, and you're tapping into the spirit of Elijah. You're tapping into the spirit of Enoch and some of these, Abraham and Noah and David, had a man after my own heart. That's the secret that, that we have access to. And you can tap into the spirit of those of our brothers and sisters in that way, the very essence,
Right. Yeah.
because where Enoch walked with God. Well, how did he do that? He was intentional. So what did it happen by? It was intention, right? And
Yes.
character. Made a covenant. Noah made a covenant with his eyes. He didn't have a problem with pornography. He turned away from the things, the enticing things.
Right.
Wasn't our brother the Word made flesh? Wasn't he tempted as we were? But he
Yeah.
didn't yield to the temptation.
Right.
So he modeled what's possible. That
Absolutely.
was Jesus. Yeah, are you saying you're
I am saying
have I
it.
been with you so long, my brother?
Right.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
so that's why that's so yeah, but those, I mean, they just, they were chosen and they just had these certain gifts. Bro, they forsook everything. Okay, they were all in. They
Yeah.
burned the boats.
Yeah.
Well, what are you saying? I got a family. Okay, it's not a problem. You love your kids, you love your wife, you love your husband. Okay. Well, there's a love that exists above and beyond the love that you have for your family. You know that, right? True story. And so there's so much more.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. I believe one of the things that, and not to get below the sun and get tripped up, because I know, man, this has been so good, dude. We've riffed nice. And you see all the issues below the sun, and all we should be doing is just kind of riding the wave of whatever is impacting you and
Right.
however you want to take your authority and do things. You can do anything in any country, any people group,
Yeah.
as long as you're functioning in love and you have a desire for something to start and something else to stop. Okay, so here's a practical example. So are you waiting for the monkeypox to come around in your freaking neighborhood? Listen, okay, here's the deal. Thus saith Boston Sea through big love. Monkeypox, impotent, dead on arrival, done.
That's right. That's right.
So what do you, man? That's pretty arrogant. Really? Is it a good thing to want that? Well, yeah, but you can't control God. I mean, maybe God's gonna. Oh, you're still reading about him. I can see. Yeah. Right. I mean, so there is so good because he's loving all of us at the same time. Well, who's
Right.
he loving? I don't know how many people on the freaking planet, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, he's not loving the malevolent and the corruptors. They're toast. They're wet. They're okay. When humans are wetting their pants, they don't have to wet their pants. They just have to get the corruption and malevolent out of them because their character and nature is being revealed. So you can
Right.
decide who you're going to vote for if there is an election. Yay! What are we worried about? What are we worried about? Any outcomes below the sun? The good news is big love's on the scene. The sons are on the scene, starting to recognize who they are. We're waking up. Okay. We're aligning together and we're choosing to live in a state of being that you can live
That's right.
24/7,
That's right.
365 while your feet walk on the physical earth. That's
That's right.
spiritual, authentic, spiritual, intelligent technology that exists at the quantum level. Subatomic particles. I wonder what Jeff is going to do. You got an electron over here. Is he going to spin up or spin down? Maybe we need to get in that poly market and have a casino and bet which way. You know what? I'll win every time because I know my brother. I know which way his damn electron is going to spin. Might spin up, might spin down, but it's going to achieve the objective because I've watched my brother. I see his nature and
Yeah.
his character and his tenacity. I see the maturity. You know what? I'll have what he's drinking. And that's what I did. That's what we're doing. Isn't that good?
Right. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, it's time to stop playing. You want to live in the fake, right? Do you really want to know what's going on? Yeah, I'd like to know. Okay, it's pretty cool, but hang on, it's going to
Right.
cost you everything.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Like people can't handle the foolishness of it all. In their mind, it's like foolishness, right? The cross was foolishness. What Christ was talking, eat my body, drink my blood. That's foolishness. Like you're crazy, man. I don't get what you're doing. It doesn't make sense to me. That's at the simplest terms, that's what we're walking into. We begin to eat and drink and believe the Kool-Aid of above the sun, and people will look at us and like, you guys are batshit crazy, you know.
Ah,
And I think that's part when she was said, unless you hate your family, your mom and dad, sister, and love me more, then you're not worthy of the kingdom. I think that's what he's talking about. It's like how crazy you willing to get, how crazy you are willing to take it into the sun and above the sun. Because if you start down this journey, you really get into a relationship with the one that created you, and you begin to call him your father. What you God now? Yeah, I like my father. I'm a God. Like
apples
my
don't
brother.
fall
I'm a
too
God.
far from trees. Who's your daddy? I can see
Right,
who your daddy is.
right. And they look at you and say, "Well, the audacity that I mean, that you would consider yourself." I don't know. I can hear brothers and sisters in the faith who would say, these guys don't listen to them. They think they're God. There's no God but God. We are the peons of His holiness, and we're
How's that
we're lucky
religion
to
working out for you?
we're worthy enough to lick His boots. That's it. That's they would never say that, but that's the attitude that they walk in because they don't fully understand. But they look at us and say, "You guys are crazy," and the world especially. I'm here and this morning just talking to the father about my with Sukuma Studios and what's the business model. And he's like, Isaiah 55:1. Isaiah 55:1. That's come by
Yeah,
milk and honey,
yeah.
milk and wine without any money.
Without cost. Yeah.
What are you saying? Give my stuff away for free? you know, make it $0, and to the world, they're like, you can't build a business off of that. How are you going to get wealthy? How are you going to have prosperity? Well, this is the foolishness of one who lives above the sun. If you're going to
Mm.
do what the Father's doing, then you got to take steps that seem absolutely batshit crazy to a world. But to the Father, they make all the sense in the world. And I think that's part of the journey of maturity is if you're going to be like your Father, then you got to act like him in every area and vestige of your life. It has to start revealing itself. When he's having you look at the prophets of old and he has them do some really silly, crazy stuff, and you wonder why they did it. The prophet, in a sense, was an oracle of the Father at the time, and his time and day and time. And he was to be the word, the voice, the manifestation of God's character for the people of that time, which means that he was breaking the molds, changing the mindsets, and these guys had to do things that were out of the norm, that didn't make sense, that were counterculture, that were even working against the natural order of physics
Right.
to establish something of God's nature and character in the face of the earth. That's what Israel was set up to be, was a phenomenon in the earth that was a complete contrast to the order of nature that surrounded him, the order of nature of man, how he did things, how things worked. I mean, that's the idea of signs and wonders, to say, well, that shouldn't happen. Well, but this is an expression of God saying, I supersede corruption, the order of things as you see them in the earth. So when you have people that are walking as little Christs, you should expect them to be absurdities in the natural world. You should expect them to walk in counterculture concepts, because the world is at odds with the nature. The nature of the world is at odds with the nature of God. We know that, right? We know that the constructs, the systems, the traits, the society of the world is it's complete juxtapositioned from the Father and his nature. It's complete opposites. As far as east from the west, that is what the systems of the world are. The systems of our Father. But yet the church seems to blend this up such a degree that it's like, can you tell the difference? Because I look at the church and think, there's a lot of systems of the world there. If How does that work? How does oil and water mix? So as we move into the oil of our Father's anointing, we should not be surprised that he calls us into the foolishness that is his system of doing things.
Mm.
We shouldn't be surprised that we cause consternation to the world when they look at us and say, that shouldn't work that way.
Mm.
Because that's the sign and the wonder of those who have the name of the Father on them, that
Yes,
walk in that realm.
that's the sign and wonder. We're the sign and wonder.
Right. So when it says to me, sell your products for free so that you can be a demonstration of my goodness in the earth to confound them, I will bless you and I will make you prosper and I will grow you in the earth. And they'll scratch their head and say, how does that work? Doesn't work in our systems. Why are you becoming prosperous when you are not doing it like we do it?
Mm.
We've been too. Father tells us, go be ministers, or go do businesses, go do these things in the earth. And we couldn't quickly turn to the world systems to make these things work. And we struggle and we fret and we wonder why we're not having the results that we're promised from the Father. I'm going to make you a nation. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to put millions of dollars in your hands. And we go and we build businesses based on the systems of the world. We wonder why we're not getting that. Right? Because we are trying to do something our Father's called us into, using systems that are at odds with his nature. Right? And I think that's where he's putting me in right now. It's like, stop doing those things that are at odds to what I'm trying to do in creation through you. You think this is the best way, business sense, best business practices, best way to do marketing, best way to do this. You use all those tools thinking you're going to accomplish what I've called you to do, when what I'm trying to implant and transplant into the earth is at odds with those systems. You can't produce that. You can't produce what I want to produce when you're using those systems to make it happen.
Right.
And that right now is facing this idea of being foolish in the face of others. Let's say that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? Well, good luck with that. I don't think you're ever going to get anything you want out of that. and dealing with my own triggers from that, saying, well, I want to feel successful among my brethren.
Hmm. Mm.
And Father's like, you need to stop and do what I
Mm.
say to do, even if it seems foolishness among your brethren.
Mm.
Do this because I have a greater purpose than just prospering you. I'm manifesting myself, my character, my nature in a world that's blind and deaf to who I am
Right.
because I live in a system that's out of me. I got to implant a
Right.
system
Right.
that reveals who I am, and
Right.
you are the agency.
Right.
And so is every man, woman, child in his household
Right.
is an agent for change because they
Right.
introduce a system that's at odds with the world systems.
Right.
So we should never worry or never be
Right.
surprised that it is going to call us into foolishness
Right.
to the world's eyes.
So good, man. Wow, bro. That was awesome. Top of the hour, man. We could keep going, and we will. We'll go back to the green room, and
Yeah.
so for anybody out there that's going to see this post live, we love you. Stay in the way, stay in the path. Keep loving big love. Keep practicing loving big. Right?
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Be whole and complete. Until next
Amen.
time, above the sun.